Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So I've finally finished my T33. I don't think, did I do some videos on this earlier? I can't remember honestly. Maybe I did. But anyways, it's done. um, we'll go over the specifics here in a second. But in the meantime, I brought the P80 down from the ceiling so I can get some pictures of both of them together. And pretty stoked on the T33 the way it turned out. It's not perfect by any means, but it'll certainly do. So, did a few upgrades and mods to it that I didn't do, or just a couple that I didn't do on the P80. And, yeah, it's got some cool stuff. I got some 3D printed parts in the cockpit. One of the cosmetic things I did was I put a more scale style strut on it. So, this is actually a Robo strut. So, it's kind of a heavy duty strut, and I put a soft spring in it, so it's it should sit more like this, but it's a little bit sprung. But anyways, looks a little bit better. It's more scale than the stock one. The stock one's not terrible with a bigger tire, but you have to really modify that fork to fit a bigger tire, and I didn't feel like doing that, and I had the Robo strut, so I figured, you know what, might as well just use it. So that's what we did. Looks pretty good. So I'll go over the rest of the mods here in a second. I'll get it up on a stand and show you guys some of the stuff. My dad 3D printed some parts for me. My friend Justin 3D printed some parts for me as well. He made the vents and the hubcaps, which I'll show you in a second, which look really cool. And my dad 3D printed the cockpit parts. These are the parts for purchase. Actually, Justin 3D printed these instrument panels for me. The ones that came with this 3D kit weren't that great, and I used the ones that Justin's made because they were much nicer. But these pilots are free. They're 3D printed. My dad printed those for me. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty sweet. Not bad. I mean, from back here, you know, you can't see all that stuff anyways, but you can get an idea of how smooth the finish is here. And I've scribed / drawn the panel lines back into the foam. The one thing I am pretty disappointed about is these decals, though. This the clear section of the decal looks kind of like crap, but what are you gonna do, you know? My friend Chris Wolf made the tail number for me, and this number back here, the TR number. So I'm not 100% sure if it's accurate or not, but according to NASA's website, they had an article about Neil Armstrong. And this was the picture they used to describe the article, or the story in the article. The picture was of this airplane. The story goes, and in fact, the story is in Chuck Yeager's book too. So Chuck Yeager and Neil Armstrong were flying in a T-33, supposedly this tail number in this scheme, looking for auxiliary landing locations for the X-15 program for like emergency landings. And so they were out flying around the desert, looking at different lake beds to land on. And supposedly, according to Chuck Yeager, they chose to land on one, and Chuck said that it was too soft because they'd had some rains in the area a couple weeks prior, but Neil said it looked fine, so they went in and landed, and it was muddy and they got stuck. So that's the story. And Chuck Yeager said that Neil Armstrong was a great engineer, but not a very good test pilot. So those are Chuck Yeager's words, not mine. But anyways, let's get this up on a stand, and I'll show you some of the mods that I did. Okay, so one of my favorite mods that I did on this airplane versus the P80 was the exhaust. I know in the video it makes it look bigger than it really is, but if I come back here, it looks a little more proportional. But basically, so what I did on my first T-33, which turned into this airplane, was I had, and I went over this in a previous video, I had cut a slice of the bottom of the fuselage out and made the back end smaller in diameter, This is about a 60 millimeter exit. So I don't remember what the stock is. I think it's 65 or 66. But what that does is it increases the velocity of the air coming out. It reduces your thrust, but it increases your dynamic thrust, which is the amount of thrust the airplane is making while it's flying at speed. So this airplane performs extremely well. If you've seen the videos of it, it's a ripper. It goes really good. But you can see here that I have the 60 millimeter exit, but then there's still, this is like the stock thickness foam back here. It's like a 1/4 inch thick. And it looks a little better than stock. It's a little bit smaller, but it's not as good as this one. So this one, I basically coned down the whole thing to the 60 millimeter, and I actually carved the whole underside and the sides of the airplane, and then body worked it in to make it smooth and all that. But I think the look in the back is so much better than stock, and it's even way better than my P80. So there's a good chance I'm going to do the same mod of the P80 at some point. I don't know when, but this looks so much better that I'm going to have to do it at some point. So, and here's a little bit better look at the instruments, just kind of like quick and dirty type stuff. Nothing spectacular. It looks good from a couple feet, like the rest of my models. So we did panel lines with a pencil, and this day glow really like bleaches out on camera. Another thing I did on this one that I didn't do I did do on the P80, but not necessarily the same way. So the wing, where the wing meets the fuselage, isn't all that great from the factory. It kind of fits like poo. There's a big gap and doesn't look that great. On the P80, I didn't like it so much that I actually made it a one-piece model, and there is no gaps at all. But the wing doesn't come off, and that makes it kind of a pain to transport. So this one, I knew I wanted to keep it a two-piece model, so I did some work with some filler and really tried to clean up this gap in here. So these little louvers turned out really cool. Those were 3D printed louvers. And let's see. Yeah, I fought the bodywork on this thing quite a bit. I had it all painted and looked really good. And much like the F-18, man, my shop's a mess. Much like the F-18, I had it in the car, and it just looked like crap when I got home. And I didn't even think it even got that hot in there. Anyways, long story short, I ended up sanding it again, repainting it again. I seriously repainted this airplane 3 times, except for the orange. I only painted the silver over and over again. I painted it once, it looked good, but I didn't like the color, so I did it again, and then there was a paint reaction with the foam, and then I beat it up. You can still see some of it like in here, and like that wasn't there before. It was really smooth. So anyways, the paint turned out okay. Like I said, I'm a little disappointed with the decals, but you know, hey, it is what it is. They were $13 for the set. So these are actually the Freewing F86 decals mixed with some of the T33 stuff. So sure, just in case you're wondering. I didn't have time to get with Callie. She's on like a 5-week wait right now, and I really wanted to get it done, so I just went ahead and did everything myself with like off-the-shelf stuff. So let's get it flipped over, and I'll show you guys what's going on underneath. All right, so just like the P80, I did speed brakes on this one. I know this looks yellow on camera, but it's more of a greenish yellow. It's zinc chromate. It's an interior color. I don't have any proof that that's what was used in this airplane, but I used it anyways. So, because that's how I do. Sometimes I just don't care and I do what I like. So yeah, here's the Robo Strut. Looks pretty good. It's a Hanger 9, 2 1/4 inch wheel. I had to do a little clearancing back here. I should have made this a little bit shorter, and I still might re-shorten it at some point, but for now it is what it is. Now on the main gear, the reason that it sits so nice on the ground, unlike the stock struts, which are very durable, but they give it kind of a stink bug look on the ground and make it a little bit harder for it to rotate. These are actually the ME262 retracts and struts. So on the P80, I have the stock retract units and these struts and tires. But in order to get these struts to work, you have to drill these out to fit the pins in the T33 gear. and it makes it really thin and kind of weak. And so I just said, hey, you know, I can get the whole strut and retract for, I don't know, was it $30 or $25 or whatever it was per unit? So with the tires, so I just got the 262 gear. They bolt right in. There's nothing, the bolt pattern's the same and all that stuff. So I did do metal tape on the doors, the gear doors. It's interesting. So you can see how actually the close the paint matches these metal panels. Actually, it's pretty cool. And then here's my beautiful rope marks already, which I'm super thrilled about. Obviously, after doing all this work, I used soft rope and it still dug in, and it just pisses me off. I also did some lightweight spackle to kind of like sharpen up the lines of these fairings back here and stuff like that. Just little things, you know. At some point, you gotta just stop because it's foam and it's not gonna stay nice forever. So, and I like to fill in all those servo troughs and all that stuff because it makes a much cleaner look on the bottom. Let's see. Here's a better look of the new exhaust area. New rear fuselage. Turned out pretty good. So, yes, those are large holes in my wheel wells. Why would I want to do that? And where is my cheater hole? Well, the P80 did some experimenting with that one, and the performance is actually really good. I went over it in one of my previous P80 videos, but basically what I did was opened up the intakes as much as possible, and by that I mean I actually sliced back this wall a little bit to increase the inlet area and smoothed out some of the transitions inside of here and filled in the cheater hole area on the inside and the outside. And it actually works pretty well once the airplane's up to speed. At low speeds, though, the fan's definitely starved. But once it's up to a pretty, you know, about over 50 or 60 miles an hour, the inlets start to work pretty good, and the ducting actually works really well at high speeds. And it makes for a really fast model. The P80, which actually just uses an A10 fan, which supposedly is less power than the stock one, which is what's in this. That thing rips. It's faster than a stock T33 by a pretty good amount. So anyways, so on this one, on the P80, I had some real small holes in the wheel wells. So that way when the gear's down for takeoff, you get some extra air in there, and it helps it get off the ground quicker. Then once the gear go up, the airplane's cleaned up, it accelerates to the speed where the ducting starts to work really well, and then it's good to go. So we'll see how it works with the T33 because the inlets are a couple inches longer because it's not shortened up here. So we'll see. It might not work, but I have faith that it'll work just fine. So the gear is shorter than stock, and then they also compress a pretty good amount. I cut the springs down on these so that way they're a little bit softer, because even these being shorter struts, it still sits too high in the back, so it pretty much almost compresses all the way down while it's sitting on the ground, which is what you want. These are the 3D printed hubcaps that my friend Justin made for me. They're T33 specific. They look really cool. They're just glued to the these wheels, which are the ME262 wheels. And let's see. I think that's pretty much it. So I'm looking forward to flying this thing. I haven't flown it yet. I bought it used. It was crashed and then fixed, but it was in pretty rough shape. So the nose was crooked, and I had to kind of make the nose not crooked again. And it was a hassle. But here's another shot of the back end. I think the stock one is probably about this big, so it's quite a bit smaller. And yes, it changes the thrust line a little bit, but honestly, you don't really notice it. So that's about it for the T33. I really like it. I can't wait to fly this thing. I love having the 33 and the P80. They're both such neat looking airplanes for their own reasons. So I'm stoked to have a 33. Hopefully it lasts a long time. One other thing, if you do these gear, you have to lengthen these little things here that the tire catches to pull the door closed. So this is just like a little piece of wood. It's like pretty much a piece of popsicle stick just glued to the end of this little plastic deal here. It pulls the door closed. You have to adjust them a little bit to get it all to work properly, but it's not a huge deal. So, anywho, that's it for now. Hope you guys like it. If you have any questions, let me know. And yes, I got a Venom. I had a Venom a few years ago, and I crashed it goofing around, and it's such a fun flying airplane. Justin talked me into buying another one, so here we are. I'm looking forward to flying that. We're going to our event this coming week. So we're going to be taking the T33 and the F100 and the Vindicator and the F18 and the Venom. And what am I missing? Oh, probably not the P80 just because it's a one-piece model. The Stearman, a couple of my kids' models, a handful of UMXs. A lot. I'm bringing a lot of models, so I'm trying to knock this little Venom out. Just doing a quick repaint on it, nothing crazy. I'm still tossing around ideas on that one because the last one looked pretty cool in the all-white scheme. So, anyways, hope you guys liked it. And yeah, sorry I rambled on too long, but oh well. You probably didn't make it this far, anyways. So we'll see you in the next one, and maybe I'll do a video from the event, show you guys what's going on over there. But, anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you later.